Hey guys, this is Matthew, and we are if you've taken Web Design 1 with me, that basically means that things have recently possibly wrapped up, and you are now familiar with HTML and a little bit of CSS and how those operate. Some basics, essentially, some fundamentals, although those fundamentals are so important moving forward. Um, as you just learn, through experience about web development, which is very, very important, in my opinion, whether your professional goals are to be an artist, a visual artist, or a graphic designer in a marketing office, or possibly even a freelance professional, running your own business operations and finding your own clients. Whatever it is that you decide to do, this is an important skill that can really benefit you. And it's really not all that complicated. So you found that out. As far as HTML, it's pretty darn simple. How to write some paragraph text or code and create some H1s and H2s and ordered lists and create some divs and arrange content and and also style those tags and elements with CSS. And now we're about to take another leap. We're about to start with WordPress. And the truth is, web development is not static HTML or CSS anymore. So it would be silly for me to really kind of dive into these incremental details about HTML and CSS because we only have one other course within the degree checklist at Dennett College. We have Web Design 1, which is the basics. You've just completed that. And we have Web Design 2, which is all about WordPress. It's a crash course in WordPress. And trust me, you're going to do fine. Just as I said in the last semester, you might think, gosh, I don't know if I can do this. Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. It's pretty easy. And I'm going to show you how easy it is. This particular video is focused on simply setting up a WordPress website, okay? And let me go ahead and share screen to get started with that. One moment, please. So this is Rocket Theme over here, okay? Rocket Theme is essentially just a template developer, okay? They make Joomla templates, which is one of the big CMSs, but it's not as big as WordPress these days. WordPress is like the big kahuna content management system or CMS that is popular these days. And a majority of websites are actually built on this platform. It's probably, in my opinion, it's your best bet. I don't like to bother with any of the other smaller CMSs because in my mind, website security is really important. And if lots of folks are using WordPress, that essentially means that security updates are going to be coming down the pipe pretty quickly. So there's a reason why WordPress is popular, okay? Use it. Don't use Joomla. In fact, I wouldn't advise that you use any other CMS foundational platform except for WordPress. But again, a lot of this is just coming from my personal opinions and experience, which I'm glad to share with you all. WordPress, I don't know what the statistics are. You could probably do a Google search and find out the ratio of websites on the World Wide Web that are currently based off of WordPress, but I guarantee you it's probably like 75, 80, maybe 85% or something ridiculous. So the whole entire World Wide Web is being run by WordPress, which is an open source application. So it's free. The actual foundation for WordPress is free. What is not free are the templates that you should be working with. And, I love this phrase, work smarter, not harder. You don't have to design or develop a new WordPress template, but you do have to be aware of user experience. And so years ago, when I was working as a full-time webmaster at an academic institution, I stumbled across Rocket Theme. Actually, I didn't stumble across it. It was advised to me by our web hosting company in California. He basically said, hey, Rocket Theme, they're making really great themes that are stable. You should try these. And so that was the theme that we actually went with when I was working at that institution. And since then, I've just been using them for my personal websites, for anything that I do for a freelance client, whatever. I always kind of go to Rocket Theme. You can browse those themes by coming up here, going to WordPress themes. And they have a lot of different options here, and really these options are dependent on the type of client that you're working with. So for example, this newest one, if you're making a website for a school, like a school website like denaecollege.edu, that might be a good template to kind of start with. Or if you have a client who's running a coffee business, or whatever, a lot of these different templates will serve those different needs uniquely. And so I would advise that you just kind of browse these and check them out a little bit. I wanted to show you guys the template. What I'm essentially going to be doing is a redesign of my website, but in a very kind of light manner. My website has many, many pages. And so if I were to go through the entire, I guess, build of a website for myself, it would take a while. And so just for the idea of being expedient with these videos, I don't think we need for them to go on for 2 or 3 hours or even days. I'm going to be doing a light version of a web build for my own personal website, okay? And so everyone is going to be getting a copy of the theme that I use for my website, which is Fluent here, okay? And I'll be sending you the information individually, but I think it's kind of fun to see how easy it is to install one of these things. And this, you can literally probably do it in under 15 or 20 minutes. I guess I'll find out after the fact. In fact, most of the time that this video will entail is essentially me kind of rambling on, not doing the actual work. But I think it's important that I talk you guys through things. And so first thing I'm gonna do, I've signed in, I have an account, and this one I previously purchased, and that's why I'm able to download it. You can't always download all of these. So if I click on Fluent, let's see what happens. So if I click on download, it's going to give me some options here. You can download just the theme itself, or you can download the theme with the rocket launcher. So if you already have WordPress installed, you can simply upload the theme into the back end of WordPress with just this simple document. But I really like these rocket launchers because it basically sets up the site as you see them as they're demoed on rockettheme.com. And so I think it's just a valuable thing. You can see the size is quite a bit larger. It's 30 megabytes, but hey, that's life. So the difference in size you can see is 5.7 to 30 megabytes. You guys are all going to be working with the rocket launcher to get started with, okay? And so I'm just going to simply download that. There it goes. It's going to unzip it automatically. And here it is, Fluent, yada, yada, yada. And inside here are all the nuts and bolts of a WordPress install. So now we have the theme identified. We have it downloaded. You guys know where to find it at rockettheme.com, okay? And you also understand that you can browse all these different options that might be valuable to you. And by the way, you're going to be learning about the Fluent theme for the most part, but after you learn one theme from a particular company, these other themes are actually going to be a little easier to work with. You're going to understand sort of the nature of the back end and how these developers are setting things up. And so, like I said, rockettheme.com has been good to me, and that's why I continue to use them for, gosh, I mean, going on 10 years now, guys. I mean, more like 8 years, but that says a lot, okay? Okay, so we've done that portion. Well, you can't upload a website unless you've got hosting. And I actually do have a hosting account that I'm going to be loading all of this information on. So if you go home to the home page, and this is bluehost.com, so Bluehost hosting. I used to use GoDaddy. I don't know, somehow GoDaddy, they upcharged me and they would do weird things. And so somehow in the course of things, I decided to actually change hosting accounts for my personal website and just anything freelance related or Dene College related, because this is Dene College's hosting account where I'm going to be placing student hosted websites. So anyway, I do use Bluehost, and it's pretty cheap. You know, it's like you pay $10 annually for a domain, which is like MatthewBollinger.com. That's the domain, or studentfirstlast.com. That would be a domain. So you got to go in there, and if I would advise you to buy the domain for 5 or even 10 years. Obviously, your name's not going to change, but make sure it's something that I, there's a reason why I chose my own name, because it's just good for SEO. If you give your your professional art website a ridiculous name like Metallica is so cool.com, it just doesn't, first of all, it doesn't reflect very well on you. But it just doesn't make sense. Okay. It needs to be yourname.com. All right. Keep it simple. Please don't embellish yourself in ways that you may not agree with down the road. Okay. So my advice is really to keep it professional. Yourname.com. Okay. And this particular domain is actually artdesigndc.com, because this hosting is all about students and student success. So let's see here. First thing I need to do, let's go to advanced. So there's this icon here that says add site. And that's like if you just want essentially Bluehost to do a lot of the logistics as far as setting up a WordPress site. But I would advise you guys can do this on your own. And especially if you want to use that rocket launcher theme with all the extras, then you need to do it my way. Okay. Which is very, very simple. Trust me, we're going to be done relatively quickly. But first thing I need to do is I need to click on advanced. Let's see what's going on here. This is called cPanel. There's a lot of like crazy stuff going on here. But as we learned in Web Design 1, there's this thing called a database. Okay, PHP SQL database. And right down here where it says My SQL Databases, let's click on that. There we go. So you can see there are some of these databases that I actually created for previous students. I did actually delete those websites because I can't just keep these websites on the hosting forever, unfortunately. And so this is a lot of these things need to go. In fact, I'm going to clean house right now. Okay, guys. So I'm going to delete some of these. I'm deleting databases. Pretty simple, because I can't have too many folks on this hosting. Otherwise, it'll get bogged down. Otherwise, I'd be happy to keep them forever, but it just doesn't work that way. So just kind of happily cleaning house here, which feels pretty good. Just give me a moment. I know this is an error there. I'm not sure what happened. The database back. It's going a little bit slow. That's okay. We don't want to rush it. That's one thing about web development. You know, when the computer is thinking, or the browser, let it do it. Let it finish its thoughts. Okay. Food for thought. And that one. And I'm going to leave those two because I'm not exactly sure what they are. They're not pointing to students, so they could be something important. The rule is if you're not exactly sure what it is, don't delete it, right? Okay. So now I'm going to create a database. And by the way, everything that I create today, I'm going to be deleting because obviously I don't want to, I'm sensitive about sharing passwords and things like that. So if any passwords do get shared on screen today, they'll be no good down the road because they'll be deleted. But when you are creating all these databases, there are passwords involved in all of that business. And if you think that you're just going to remember things, don't think that. You really need to write these things down. Like, for example, say, okay, this is my user ID. This is my IP address. I mean, just write down all of this stuff because if you don't, it could get you into hot water later. Okay. So I'm going to come up here. And again, the first step is to create a database for the website. So I'm going to, you can just say, let's see, I think Diné College was founded in 1968. So I'm going to call this DINE 1968. And again, because I think it's really important, I'm going to follow my own rules here. I'm going to create a text edit file where I'm going to place this information. And I'm even going to make sure to say database name. And I'm just going to simply hit create database. Okay, it's been created. If we go back, now you're going to see it down here. Okay, it says art DSI, I think that's a capital I believe anyway, underscore Diné 1968. Notice how there is no user associated with this account yet. Every database always has to have a user with privileges, okay? And so I'm actually going to call the user the same darn thing. And I'm going to just make up a password, okay? Again, I would write down all of these details. In fact, I'm going to do that now. I'm not going to tell you my password, obviously. But you guys should write that down. So we're going to create the user. All right. Okay. Now we've created the user, but still the user is not affiliated with the database. So now what? Okay. We have to add the user to the database. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to select Diné 1968, and I'm going to add Diné 1968, and then I'm just going to simply click add. And then it's going to ask me, manage user privileges. We want to give this user all privileges, and then make changes. Okay, now let's go back. And you can kind of see now the user is associated with the database. That's a good start. And by the way, when you're punching in the information, notice how Bluehost gave you this additional stuff. Okay, that might be useful. So I'm going to put it right next door here. And also, I'm going to make this plain text. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I prefer plain text with all this stuff. I'm going to say or. Okay. I'm just being cautious here, and I'm tracing all of my steps because believe me, it's useful sometimes. Save this file in a very important place where you will never lose it. You might even want to put it up in the cloud somewhere. That's the smart thing to do because these files, they don't cost you any space. A text file is nothing. You don't need to worry about it, but it could be invaluable later when you're trying to figure out, when you're trying to solve problems, essentially. So we've got the database created. Okay, now what? Let's go back to Bluehost. And let's see here. We've done a lot of the stuff that we need to do on this end. Okay. And here's cPanel again. We don't need that. Now we actually need to go to, so this is how you access they call it Bluehost portal up here, where you can do a lot of these logistics. For example, clicking on the advanced tab and then clicking on the SQL databases section where you can create a new database. It's also going to show you handy things like the IP address, some cool stuff. There aren't here's my user ID, so that could be kind of handy. But now let's go to, you need an FTP client. This one is called Fetch. There's one called FileZilla, but I don't know why, but I always used Fetch. And here's the icon right down here. It's like this little running puppy dog thing. I've been using that for over 10 years as well. I think I paid $4 or $5 for it at some point, and it's paid for itself quite a few times, with my salary, a lot. So, but now we need to create a location or a home for our website. So I'm going to click on public HTML. And here is already an install of WordPress that Bluehost did for me, but I'm going to create a subfolder install. And you can see I've created this folder called GD313, GD313. I'm going to click on it. And in that folder, there's another folder called Spring 2023. Okay. And let's see, I'm actually going to create a folder here called test. Within that folder, so essentially you need to go into the hosting account, into the backend where you can access the files. And I've already logged in. Okay, so you guys, you didn't see that part. It's very easy, but with your IP address and your password and all that good stuff, you can log in, no problem. It's not a big deal. So, and I've, again, created, just to walk you back through it again, here's where you'll be when you log into hosting on the back end of file transfer protocol. And that's what FTP stands for. And so click on public HTML, and under GD313, there's this folder called Spring 2023. Click on that, and I've created this folder called test, and that's where I'm going to place the website. And earlier I did download, remember, from Rocket Theme, the website. So it's going to be in my downloads folder. Let's see here, there it is, Fluent. You don't want to upload the zipped folder. You want to upload the unzipped version. Okay, and you click into that guy and you're going to see all of these different files. You want to make sure to grab all of them. Just hit Command A on a Mac to select all of those files that were within that folder. And then we're going to simply just move them over to this location that we've chosen. Might take a little while. Like mine is telling me it's going to take about 30 minutes. And so I'm actually going to pause recording while that's happening. Okay, guys, we should be back to recording. It took about 20-25 minutes. Kind of gives you an idea of the speed of some of these servers. Also, it really wasn't even a lot. It was only 77 megabytes after things were unzipped, but it took a little while for things to get uploaded to the server. I want to remind you guys of the path again that we've set up. There's the home or index. You remember, In Web Design 1, I talk a lot about the index. And so it's not in WordPress, it's not an index.html. It's actually an index.php, because remember, we're working with a database-driven content management system at this point. But that's home base, index. And so that should be a reminder. And then I created this folder called GD313 right here. Within GD313 is spring 2023. Within that folder is a folder called test. And if I click on test, you're going to see the raw WordPress install. And that's where we're going to be headed next, but we're actually not going to be doing it on the back end. We're going to be doing that through the browser. And so the next step is, first of all, I need to have those pieces of information just kind of ready to go that I had written down when I was creating the database logistics. Remember the database name, the database user, and then of course the database password, which I have not written down for obvious reasons. You'll have to develop your own password. So let's open a new browser window, a new tab. And by the way, make sure you do all of this when you have a stable connection. I know that some folks are working from home, or sometimes the internet goes out. Just use your best judgment. Make sure you're doing this kind of stuff when you have a solid connection. And that really includes anything regarding everything and anything in this class. I know sometimes those things can't be helped, and I don't want to make anyone paranoid. But especially when you're installing WordPress, you need a pretty consistent connection to make sure that things go smoothly. So if you need to go to like the Window Rock campus, or the Crown Point campus, or Saley campus, and camp out to make sure that things go smoothly, I'd advise you to do so. By the way, no one is going to have to do any of this for this class, because I'm actually going to be taking care of that for you. I want you to just have this video available, because at some point you are going to want to start your own website, and I want you to know how to do that. That's what this is all about. So I'm going to go to artdesigndc.com/GD213, right? /spring -2023 /test. Let's see what happens. Hey guys, I'm back. Ran into an error actually, and it was a simple human error like things usually are. Over here, instead of writing 313, I actually wrote GD213. And so that's why that was not working. So you can kind of see though, up here it says artdesigndc.com/GD313 spring-2023 /test/wp-admin/setup-config. You really only have to navigate. If you're pointing the browser to the right location, it'll do the rest. So that's the business that you really need to point to in your browser, and then this process will begin. Okay. And so obviously, WordPress is global, so you can choose your language, English for me. And then it's basically saying you need a few things to make this work. And we've written a few of these things down, and we're hoping that it's going to work just fine. So now we're going to say, let's go, let's do this. Database name. Remember, I wrote this stuff down, okay? And I'm going to use the longer version here. And I'm going to plug that in. And the username, remember, is the same. And then the password. Stop sharing for a moment, because obviously I don't want to share that. So I'm going to plug in my password, and I'm going to leave this as localhost, and I'm not going to touch either of these. Don't touch those. But you need those three items. You need your database name, your username, and your password. and I'm going to hit pause because I don't want folks to see that. Okay. After you plug in the database name, the username, and the password, you should see this window where it says, all right, Sparky, blah, 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 you're ready to go. And then you can click run the installation. And so at this point, your database and your web WordPress install, they're able to communicate in a similar way. Remember last semester in Web Design 1, we were actually always concerned with the HTML file being able to communicate with the CSS file. This is a similar circumstance. You're just setting up that dialog. Run the installation, and then you can call this whatever you'd like, okay? So I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call this test. And I want to use my name, and I'm going to use my Dene College. Well, yeah, I'm going to use my Dene College email. So okay, and obviously I'm not going to show me typing in my password again, so I'm going to pause for a moment. Okay, so I've finished the last page and I plugged in my password, and of course it's reminding me again what my username is, but it's not showing me the password that I chose, which is kind of nice. But now I can actually log in if I click on this guy right here. Okay, so again, I'm being cautious with my password here because I think I might use this install for the remainder of the demos for this course. I'm not sure yet. But I'm going to hit pause one more time. I'd like for you guys to notice something too. So you have your URL, but there's also at the end, it says wp-login.php. And so just kind of in order to get to this login window, you have to have wp-login.php at the end of your domain. Okay. I'll be sending that to you via email because again, I'm going to facilitate all of these installs for each of you. And then you just simply click login. Let's see, this should work. There we go. So now things are officially working. I officially have an install to work with, right? And at this point, what I want to do is just kind of tour through the back end of WordPress. And by the way, this you've heard me use that phrase before, back end, in the previous class, but this really truly is the back end of a website. Because it's essentially the Starship Enterprise where you can manage all the different things that are involved with the management of your website. So that's the back end. If you want to see the front end, you just simply come over here and say visit site. But the real truth is that I actually like having both of them open at once. And so I'll have two browsers open. So I'm going to backtrack here, back to the back end, and then I'm going to just have the front end visible there. Having a difficult time seeing the top of my browser window. That's why I keep shifting things around. And so, yeah, here's the installed template, which may look a little bit boring. But we're going to be replacing all of these sample images with your stuff and all this text. We're just going to be swapping it out. And just to kind of give you a reminder, or just to see what kind of direction we're headed in, I'm going to show you the front end of my website, which is using the exact same template. Okay. And so this is as it comes straight out of the box. Okay. With images ready to be replaced, etc., etc. And this is where I took it personally, and where I'm going to be doing sort of a light version with pretty much a total of 7-8 videos in this class, walking you through the process. Okay. But you can see the menu is different. Everything is different here. But it's still the bare bones basics of what you need. So I'll close them in. This is my website, again, matthewbollinger.com, if you want to check it out and kind of browse around. Okay. So going back to the back end, let's just walk through a few things. First of all, keeping your website up to date is really, really important. So right now it's 6.2.2. Looks like it was just checked. I would advise that you try to set up automatic updates, because when you don't update, especially in this class, when you don't update the website, it leaves things vulnerable to security malware. And that could cause a problem for your site, and it could cause a problem for your colleagues' sites. So my advice is just, yeah, make sure things get updated. I would not advise at this point that you add any plugins or do anything of that nature. That you got to keep the existing plugins updated that are already installed, and your existing version of WordPress updated as well. But again, I'm actually going to be facilitating a lot of this stuff, and so you're going to have to worry about it a little bit less. Okay. So there updates is right. First of all, there's the home page, and it'll give you some analytics about things that are, events that are happening nearby, site health. At some point, when you become a little bit more advanced with WordPress, you might want to add an analytics plugin, which will help you to see, how your SEO is doing for each of those pages and how the traffic is doing, et cetera, et cetera. So then there's the updates portion right here, right, which I just talked about. The other thing that is advisable is you have a certain theme that is installed, but it's not this one, that one, or that one. And so I would actually advise that when themes aren't updated, they're vulnerable as well. So usually what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll actually delete those themes. I wonder if I can, trying to remember exactly how to do that. If you can delete those here. I don't think that you can. Let's see here. Hold on one moment. Yeah, I was able to update them here, but there is another location where I can actually just flat out delete them, because I'm never going to be using any of those. So I would prefer just to not have them involved with my install. And so again, when you leave those themes not being updated, you're leaving your WordPress site vulnerable. It's not a good thing. Posts. And so you can add new pages. These are some of the existing pages that come out of the box here with this particular theme. So for example, there's the About Us page. Let's see here. There's another one called Responsive Template, color picker, yada, yada, yada. So these are just some of the pages that have been created. At some point, you might want to delete these, but that's not necessary right now. But this is where you add new pages, okay? We're going to go into greater detail with that process a bit later, but this is where you would create a new page. Add new. This is what it would look like when you actually click that button. We're not going to do that right now. You can create categories, which can be pretty handy. You want categories, especially with an art page, in my opinion, because, for example, I have categories for different bodies of work or years that work was created. So just kind of keeping your content organized can be really valuable to do with these categories. And you can also create tags, which are useful for SEO. Okay. So those are like really more like nitty gritty details, but it's important to kind of understand where all that happens. Clicking on media, this is where you're going to add images of your paintings and drawings and works of art. And so it's pretty simple. You just click on add new, and you can drag the files over, or you can select them with your browser, however you choose to do it. But this is where you add the media that you'll eventually populate your pages with. Posts were up here. Okay. It's more like actually, this is more of the blog area. This is where all the pages stuff really happens. And you can kind of see there are quite a few more happening on this page. There's that icon for add new up on the top left-hand corner. And so when you do want to add a page, I was actually, I misspoke. Posts is not necessarily a page. A post is more blog associated. So when you want to create a page, this is where you do it. And you click add new. Very similar, but tomato, tomato. You can go in my opinion, you should disable comments from WordPress, because remember, WordPress initially started as a blog sort of site format, and you can still use it in that manner. I actually prefer not to have that kind of interaction, mostly because of spam lately. You could just get a ton of spam and folks that you don't recognize, and you don't want folks creating accounts on your website either. So this is the sort of thing that I would disable, and I would not encourage you to be involved with. But I'll leave that up to you. When you go to appearance, this is actually where you can, yeah, hold on one moment. I'm remembering now, you click on this and you can see right here, you can delete these things. Obviously, this is the one you do not want to delete. If you delete Fluent, you're going to be in a world of pain, okay? So do not, I repeat, do not delete the Fluent theme. You can, if you choose, delete these other themes. Just clean house a little bit. Quite a few of these guys that are just, they're just security vulnerabilities. That's all they are, man. We have one theme now, and that's the one that we're going to be using. I look at Rocket Theme LLC, boom. So themes, customize business over here. This is kind of showing you a preview. The real truth is you don't need to mess with this too much, because we're going to be making these changes through the theme backend. And I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Widgets. Yeah, this is something that we're not going to be talking about in this class, so ignore this section, please. Menus. This is actually something that's extraordinarily important. You can see that as you add pages, they will appear on the left-hand side here. These are all details that we'll explore in much greater, at much greater length later on. But one thing you need to know is that as you add pages, they'll show up here so that you can populate them into your primary menu and sort of customize things. So right now, the way that the menu looks on the front end over here is essentially verbatim to what's happening here. And you don't need to change anything there right now. Again, this is only the first video where I'm giving you a walkthrough. Don't go in there like you're a cowboy or a cowgirl, with your gunslinging, trying to make big changes right off the bat. Please do all changes in WordPress cautiously, and make those changes knowing that you know what you're doing, okay? And you'll know what you're doing by listening to the videos that I'm giving you, and maybe even watching them 2 or 3 times, and rewinding and pausing and doing all that good stuff. But this is a very important section right here. So pages is very, very important, because you got to add new pages, right? And also menus is very, very important, because you're going to be making some changes. You don't need to bother with this. You are not going to be editing the theme at all. I would advise you never to click on that or go in there. Just don't do it. Okay, so don't mess with that. That's kind of like trying to think of a good analogy, but yeah, it's just it's a bad idea. Plugins. You currently have the Gantry 5 framework is the foundation of the Rocket theme. So if you deactivate or delete this Gantry 5, you're going to be in trouble. One thing I would advise you to do is I will probably set up your sites so that these plugins update automatically. Don't add any more update or plugins, please. Yeah, it's just not at this stage in the game. Let's learn to walk before we learn to run, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and update these on mine, because again, when these things are outdated, They're security vulnerabilities, okay? Users, you can add additional users with different permissions on WordPress. And in fact, I am most likely going to be doing that with all of your websites, so, precisely so that you can't go in and make some major problems that you don't want to create. So I'll be the administrator, and then I'll add an account for you to go ahead and be able to manage pages and what you need to do. So that's where you can add users and modify the profile information. On this particular website, there's only one user. But when you see your website, again, you might see me as an admin, and you might see another profile for yourself as an editor. Okay, let's go and check out tools. I really don't find myself going over here very often. It's just doesn't seem useful or necessary for me. Although I'm sure I might eventually run into a circumstance where I need to do something here, but for the time being, this is not really applicable to this class. Okay, settings. This is actually pretty good stuff because you can change your site title. Obviously, if I want SEO Google spiders to be able to find my webpage, I want to say Matthew Bollinger, artist, New Mexico, Arizona, and start thinking about keywords that are useful for Google to be able to find my site. And then I also want to give it a tagline, like artwork by Matthew Bollinger, paintings, drawings, architectural, et cetera, et cetera. You don't want to change these at all. Sometimes you want to change your admin email address, but be really cautious because, okay, I mean, what happened? You might lock yourself out of your own site if you're not real careful and if you're not good at writing things down. Okay. Anyone can register? Absolutely not. Never click that. You do not want people registering for this website. There's so much spam going on. It's crazy. And in fact, yeah, new user, I mean, no one can register. So this is sort of not applicable, but yeah, you can see there's the tier of the different levels: subscriber, contributor, author, editor, and then admin. And so you guys will all have editor privileges, but not admin privileges. Okay. Time zone, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's go check out writing. Okay. Okay. Looks good to me, I guess. All right. Yeah, you're not going to be involved with any of this discussion stuff because we're not setting this website up as a blog. That's just to me, that's just the last thing that you want to do. Okay. Here, like when WordPress brings images into its database or file folder, it's going to do it by default in 3 different sizes. And so there's thumbnail, medium, and large. And that's just kind of, sometimes these images have multiple purposes on different pages. And so that's why it's basically processing those images and essentially sort of translating them into these different qualities. Okay. A lot of this stuff is already set to go. Like, for example, I think just post name, yada, the way that things are right here, let it be. Okay. Privacy. Gantry 5 settings, production mode. Okay. Yeah, sometimes you might run into a situation where you might have to go in here and look at these details. And I just want you to see, we're just kind of taking a walk through this. Here's the real big one. There's, the WordPress backend has 2 things that you're going to be using a lot. It's the pages section where you're going to be creating a page. Then there's the menu section, okay, under appearance right here, where you're going to be thinking about the pages and how they might plug into the primary menu on the front page of the website. So that's really important. And that's the WordPress backend. The other thing that you need to really be mindful of is that there's a WordPress backend, and then there's actually a theme backend. And here where it says Fluent Theme, if you click on that, that's going to take you into a whole nother world. Okay. And so Up in the top left, you can choose different existing pages that have been created. Okay, and again, this is all really quick and new for today. We're going to be going into much greater detail of this, but you can see this is actually the base outline, but you can actually even go to the home outline, which we can sort of go back to the home page here. If we sort of compare apples to oranges or apples to apples, however you want to see it, you can kind of see that there's the news slider. Okay, that's this guy right here. That's the news slider. Okay, then there's the case studies. Here are all the case studies that can be modified. Okay, and then going down further, there's the info list and the testimonial slider. Oops. And so there it is. So the info and then the testimonials. So you can kind of see, the way that things are formatted here. Pricing table. These are, you may not need all of these things for your website, but it's kind of nice to be able to walk through this and kind of see how this theme backend corresponds to your theme front end. Okay. And so there's a connection happening there. And in fact, a lot of the work that you're going to be doing in this website is within the theme backend, not necessarily the WordPress backend. Because the WordPress backend is more all about admin stuff and creating pages, dropping images in, and rearranging your menu. But more of the logistics, in my mind, are actually going to be happening here. Okay. And so you can go to any of these. So I just clicked on home. There's the layout. You can go to the styles. You can go to the page settings, which are really important. The assignments, extraordinarily important. This video is more of me just kind of giving you guys a speed walk through all this. We are going to be talking about all this stuff in much greater detail in future videos. So don't go in here and start turning things on and off. Please, again, if you go in here like a cowboy or a cowgirl gunslinging, just kind of making things or changing things that I'm not aware of, you might be crawling into a cave that you might not be able to get yourself out of. So be intentional with and knowledgeable with the changes that you're making in WordPress, and do it incrementally and cautiously, please. We're going to be creating additional outlines, or rather even duplicating them from existing outlines, and we'll be doing that here. So, this is sort of the very quick, just sort of glimpse of the back end of the Fluent theme. And that's pretty much the most that you need to know for this particular video. But you can go to different pages or layouts on the left-hand side, and they're going to look a little bit different. Like, I also want to mention something else. That whole CSS thing, cascading style sheets, it applies to the styles that are occurring within this website as well. So the base outline, we go to styles. The base outline is where you're going to be changing if you decide to change. For example, like right now, remember, here's body font. We recognize that. And it says Hebo, Helvetica, and then Tahoma. I don't know what Hebo is. So if it were me, I would just say Helvetica, Arial, and then Tahoma. But that's just me, in fact. I'll change that later. But for my website, I'm not going to leave my typeface or font as Hebo. I've never even heard of that. I'm much more comfortable using Arial or Helvetica. That's just me. But you can change, just some general, presets up here. So for example, maybe instead of messing with any of this stuff back here for the time being, I would advise you to just click on these presets. Okay. And so right now, there is this sort of blue kind of theme, and all the images are very gray right now. Let's see, what if I click on that preset, which is now highlighted, and we refresh? Not big changes aren't being made so far. Oh, I have to save it, of course. Okay. Now let's see. Running a little slow. It's okay. Be patient. There. See, the blue highlight is no longer there because I've changed the preset. But again, these are trivial things that I don't think need to be worried about right now. So just take it slow and tour yourself around the back end of your website, but please don't click anything, don't change anything, don't do anything yet, because you're going to have plenty of time in the next 5 weeks to do that. All right. You're also going to be getting just FYI. It's basically saying, do you want to leave the site? I'm going to say yes. You're going to be getting this error that says you are running PHP 5.64, yada, 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 and it's recommending something else. This is something that has to be updated with the hosting, so you don't have any control over that. So you're probably going to see that error for the duration of this course. And so this PHP version is going to work just fine for now. If this were hosting for my personal site and I was planning on having this going for the long haul, I might consider updating my PHP, but I would do that very cautiously. Again, I would back up my websites and anything I wanted to protect, and then I would make these kinds of changes. Sometimes when you make these changes on a website, it can be really catastrophic, and unforeseen circumstances can present themselves and make your perfect day into a living nightmare. I'm not joking. So just, again, be cautious. And when you do tour the back end of this website, don't change anything. Don't do anything. Just scroll around and take note as far as how things are looking. Okay. We have plenty of time in the next 5 weeks to make changes. And I think that's good for now. Thanks, guys.